Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie The Croods, A New Age in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called The Croods. A New Age, we will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie. In today's video, I'm going to tell you, I'm also going to give you all the information on which platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film's storyline, star cast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you friends to watch this video till the end, so let's start the video. The Croods, A New Age is a 2020 American animated adventure comedy film produced by DreamWorks Animation. The second film in the Croods franchise, it was directed by Joel Crawford and written by Paul Fisher, Bob Logan, and Dan and Kevin Hageman. Nicolas Cage, Emma Stone, Ryan Reynolds, Catherine Keener, Clark Duke, and Cloris Leachman reprised their roles from the original film, with Peter Dinklage, Leslie Mann, and Kelly Marie Tran joining the cast. The film follows the Croods, Guy and their pets Belt, Chunky, and Douglas, as they discover an idyllic, walled-in paradise that meets all of their needs. However, they must also learn to live with the Bettermans, a family a couple of steps above the Croods on the evolutionary ladder. A sequel to The Croods was first announced in April 2013, with directors Chris Sanders and Kirk D'Amico returning to helm the film. Its development continued through 2014 and 2015 until its cancellation in November 2016 due to doubts in response to NBC Universal's August 2016 acquisition of DreamWorks Animation. However, the project was revived in September 2017, with Crawford replacing Sanders and D'Amico as directors in the following month, though they retained story credit. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic in the United States, most of the final results from the animating process were done from the crews' homes. The Croods, A New Age was theatrically released in the United States on November 25, 2020 by Universal Pictures. It grossed $215 million worldwide against its $65 million budget and received mostly positive reviews, with critics calling it a decent enough follow-up and praising the cast and animation. The film was also nominated for the Golden Globe Award for Best Animated Feature Film. Plot? The Croods, Guy and their pets, Chunky and Douglas, roam their new homeland, fighting off dangerous creatures as they look for a place to permanently settle. Grug, the family patriarch, is increasingly concerned about the budding romance between Guy and his daughter, Eep, fearing they might leave the rest of the family behind. The Croods' journey takes an unexpected turn when Grug discovers a massive wall and leads the family over it into a paradise-like land on the other side. They are quickly captured by the land's owners, Phil and Hope Betterman, modern humans who were friends with Guy's late parents and are now technologically advanced. They release the Croods, but behave condescendingly towards them. Believing that Guy would be better off with them, Phil and Hope devise a plan to get him to leave Eep and the Croods. Grug's time with the Bettermans becomes uncomfortable. As Phil takes him into his man cave, a sauna, he is manipulated by Phil, who believes that Guy should stay with them while Eep stays with her family. Hope also tries to manipulate Ugga, Grug's wife, but fails, and Grug and Ugga consider leaving. Eep discovers that Phil and Hope's daughter, Dawn, has never been outside the walls. Eep persuades Dawn to escape with her for a joyride using Chunky, but their adventure goes awry, leaving them both disheveled. Upon their return, Guy scolds Eep for her recklessness, leading to a falling out between them. During dinner, tensions escalate, and Grug accidentally reveals some of his conversations with Phil. Fed up with the Betterman's condescension towards their differences, the Croods decide to leave, while Guy opts to stay behind. However, their departure is disrupted by punch monkeys, who are angry for not having the bananas that Phil usually provides as a daily offering due to Grug and Ugga having eaten all of them. The punch monkeys capture Grug, Phil, and Guy, taking them to their lair, while the remaining Croods and Bettermans follow their scent. At the lair, it is revealed that one of Phil's irrigation projects deprived the monkeys of their water supply. The monkeys demanded the bananas as repayment because they needed extra food to offer to a monstrous spiny mandrilla to maintain their peace with it. Meanwhile, the remaining Croods and Bettermans lose the boys' scent and find themselves marooned in a frozen wasteland where they encounter giant wolf spiders. Hope finally comes to terms with her prejudice against the Croods. She and the others accept each other as equals and decide to call themselves the Thunder Sisters. They eventually locate Grug, Phil, and Guy just as the Punch Monkeys prepare to sacrifice them to the spiny mandrilla. Guy and Eep reconcile and use a giant skull chandelier to knock the spiny mandrilla into a chasm where it plummets to its death while the two families escape. With their differences resolved, the Bettermans invite the Croods to live as neighbors on their land. Guy and Eep choose to share one of the Bettermans' bedrooms, and the Punch Monkeys become their next-door neighbors. Voice cast: Emma Stone as Eep Crood, a cave woman, Grug's oldest daughter, and Guy's girlfriend. Ryan Reynolds as Guy, a caveman with an advanced modern mindset who lives with the Croods and is Eep's boyfriend. Gabriel Jack voices a younger Guy. Nicolas Cage as Grug Crood, a caveman and the patriarch of the Croods. Catherine Keener as Ugga Crood, a cave woman and Grug's wife. Cloris Leachman as Gran, an old cave woman who is Ugga's mother and Eep, Thunk, and Sandy's grandmother. Clark Duke as Thunk Crood, a cave boy and Grug's son. Leslie Mann as Hope Betterman, the matriarch of the Bettermans and Phil's wife. Peter Dinklage as Phil Betterman, the patriarch of the Bettermans who had a history with Guy's parents. Kelly Marie Tran as Dawn Betterman, Phil and Hope's daughter and only child who befriends Eep and is Guy's old friend. Kaylee Crawford as Sandy Crood, a cave girl and Grug's 5-year-old daughter. Her vocal effects were previously performed by Randy Tom in the last movie. Chris Sanders as Belt, Guy's pet sloth. James Ryan as Sash, Dawn's pet sloth. Melissa Disney as Guy's mom, the unnamed mother of Guy who died in the rising tar pit. Joel Crawford as Guy's dad, the unnamed father of Guy who died in the rising tar pit. Januel Mercado as Shaman Monkey, the head of the Punch Monkeys. Ryan Naylor as Creepo Monkey, a creepy-eyed member of the Punch Monkeys. Artemis Pebdani as additional voices. ADR group was provided by Richard Gould, Januel Mercado, Ryan Naylor, James Ryan, Randy Tom, and director Joel Crawford. Music. In September 2020, it was announced that Mark Mothersbaugh had replaced the first film's composer, Alan Silvestri, as composer for this film. On November 12, 2020, a single called Feel the Thunder, performed by Haim, was released. Reception. Box office in Vaudi. The Croods: A New Age has grossed $58.6 million in the United States and Canada and $157.4 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $216 million. It became the first animated film released during the COVID-19 pandemic and the first family film since Sonic the Hedgehog to break the $200 million mark. In the United States, the film made $1.85 million from 2,211 theaters on its first day, $2.7 million on its second, a 47% increase as opposed to the normal 40% drop seen on Thanksgiving Day, and $4 million on its third. It went on to debut at $9.7 million in its opening weekend, a 5-day total of $14.3 million, the biggest opening weekend since Tenet over 2 months prior. The film remained in theaters the following 2 weekends, grossing $4.4 million and $3 million respectively. It was dethroned by Monster Hunter in its 4th weekend dollar. That same weekend, the film was the most rented on Fandango Now, Apple TV, and Google Play. In its 5th weekend, the film grossed $1.7 million over the Christmas frame. It also remained number 1 on all digital rental platforms. IndieWire estimated the film had made about $20 million from PVOD sales up to that point, of which Universal would keep 80%. The film continued to hold steady on subsequent weekends and regained the top box office spot in its 12th week of release with $2.7 million. The film earned $3 million on its opening day in China, which is the 3rd biggest for a Hollywood film in 2020, behind Tenet and Milan. It went on to earn $19.2 million in China and a total of $21.6 million internationally. By its third weekend of release, the film had crossed $46 million, RMB 300 millions in China, becoming the second biggest Hollywood title of the year in the country behind Tenet, $66.6 millioners. It made $3.2 million in its fourth weekend of international play, pushing its running total above $57 million. 7 years after the release of The Croods, a sequel finally emerges from the caves of Hollywood, pushing its ways into theaters in the markets where people are still allowed to go to the multiplex. Rather than drop this one on VOD like Trolls World Tour, Universal and DreamWorks are pushing forward with a theatrical release even as COVID cases skyrocket. Will people strap on a mask after Thanksgiving turkey and head out to see one of the few blockbusters released this season? The business story here could make for some interesting headlines, especially if it ends up a financial loser for the company willing to risk opening it in theaters. That's the only story that will be of interest because the movie itself is hyperactive and shallow, the kind of animated sequel that operates under a more is better aesthetic, hoping to numb audiences into thinking they were actually entertained. A decent first half and solid voice work throughout succumbs to total chaos for the second half and the realization that there's almost no actual artistic intent here. No story, no character, no world building, no design. It's all bright colors and loud noises. You'd think we'd evolved beyond that by now. The comparatively charming The Croods was the story of an overprotective caveman father named Grug, Nicolas Cage, who came to terms with the fact that his daughter Eep, Emma Stone, had to grow up and take some risks of her own, including falling in love with a boy named Guy, Ryan Reynolds. The Croods: The New Age opens with a brief reminder of Guy's backstory and how he became a part of the Croods pack, one that also includes Mom Ugga, Catherine Keener, son Thunk, Clark Duke, and Gran, Cloris Leachman. Eep and Guy are starting their romance in an increasingly dangerous world. There's a fun early montage to I Think I Love You as the pack avoids life-threatening situations. Just after Grug discovers that his daughter is considering leaving the pack to start her own with Guy, the Croods stumble upon a fenced-in commune run by the Bettermans. Hope, Leslie Mann, Phil, a great Peter Dinklage, and their daughter Dawn, Kelly Marie Tran. The Bettermans are the city mice to the Croods' country mice. They compost their garbage instead of just leaving it in the wild. They wear sandals and necklaces and man buns. Phil even has a literal man cave to retreat to when life gets too hard. All of the civilization is shocking to the Croods, including its bananas and mirrors. Guy has an important history with the Bettermans, which leads to a sort of pack love triangle. Will Guy return to the more civilized and predictable world of Dawn Betterman, or roam the dangerous plains with Eep Crood? It's not a bad starting point, but 4 credited writers, plus 2 more credited with the story, can't figure out how to build on it. The promising setup gives way to shallow stakes, repeated jokes, and hyperactive visuals. For the record, I have 3 children under 11, so I have the expertise to say that this is one of the most headache-inducing children's blockbusters in recent years. No one is expecting nuance in a sequel to The Croods. But there's a balance between that and non-stop noise. It doesn't help that The Croods: A New Age is content to tell pretty much the same story, only louder. Once again, it's a story of fathers learning that they can't be too protective of their daughters. Phil goes through a similar arc with Dawn as Grug did with Eep in the first movie, and an encouragement for families to stick together no matter what happens. How civilization actually separates families like the Bettermans, while being out in the wild focuses a family like the Croods into a more cohesive pack, could have been an interesting story, especially given how families are literally more apart this holiday than ever before. But The Croods: A New Age doesn't really do much beyond the surface, giving the movie over to physical comedy and loud action sequences. Every time that The Croods: A New Age feels like more than a generic retread, it returns to something safe and familiar. The irony is that these stories are about breaking out of a bubble, overprotective fathers who realize that the danger of the world is an essential part of growing up. If a third adventure surfaces for Grug, Eep, Guy, and the gang, one would hope that the filmmakers would take their own advice. The best movies are made by those willing to leave the pack. For transparency's sake, it feels important to state that this film was screened via streaming app. The intent of this review is not to encourage or discourage anyone from attending a theatrical screening at this specific time. It is an analysis of the work itself for posterity. In the beginning, there was The Croods, an agreeable enough 2013 cartoon about an overprotective early man named Grug, Nicolas Cage, who was so worried about the perils of the outside world that he kept his clan confined to a cave. Then his adventurous teenage daughter Eep, Emma Stone, met an outsider, Guy, Ryan Reynolds, and the family was forced to confront the possibility that maybe they had been a little limited in their thinking. From that rudimentary concept, the Croods managed to conjure a surprisingly lavish CG world for these goofy cave people to explore, one in which the creatures and environments were so richly detailed they easily distracted from the threadbare storytelling. The movie was basically a feature-length sitcom treated as a runaway theme park ride. When all was said and done and the Crood family had learned its lesson, there was no organic reason to continue the story. But that didn't stop DreamWorks Animation, which is in the business of wringing sequels from stones. Sometimes it works. Look how far it's stretched the Shrek and Madagascar franchises. But it's hard not to be cynical about a strategy that involves spending a ton of time and money developing original tunes in the hope that they will generate future installments, spin-off TV series, and lots of merchandising. That's how we got The Croods: A New Age, a largely unnecessary sequel, from an audience perspective at least, in which the Guy and Eep sitting in a tree romantic subplot from the first movie gets drawn out for another 90 minutes when Grug stumbles across the Bettermans, a significantly more evolved family with a teenage daughter of their own. They've invented agriculture, personal hygiene, and indoor plumbing. Plus, they have a much better tree. Director Joel Crawford, graduating from the Trolls Holiday Special, presents all of these details as jokes. And if that sounds like fun, watching Guy learn how to use a toilet, or hearing Cloris Leachman, as Gran, interrupt every so often with a crack about how things were back in her time, then this movie could be your jam. But for those who wish they'd just slow it down and tell a decent story, The Croods: A New Age feels like an assault on the cranium, a loud and patently obnoxious 21st century Flintstones with far more sophisticated technology, but nothing new to offer in the script department. At least the partial reopening of cinemas makes it possible for theatergoers to appreciate all the attention put on production design. Frankly, it was more fun seeing Fred Flintstone use a long-billed bird as a Stone Age record player, though the screenwriting team of Kevin and Dan Hageman, Paul Fisher, and Bob Logan do come up with pretty good sight gags. Or perhaps those contributions come from the production team, which employs the latest digital tools to push some of the core principles of hand-drawn animation to an extreme. Exaggerated facial expressions, squash and stretch, poses, and hyperactive movement. For instance, it's an old-school trick to show the silhouette of a character punched through a wall, like a chalk crime scene outline. And here we see that both indoors, a novel concept for the Croods, and in the side of a giant watermelon, suggesting oldest son Thunk, Clark Duke, took a running jump at the jumbo-sized snack. Whereas the Croods lived in a desolate land of rocks and dirt and dangerous beasts, it's a running theme that the creatures they encounter are either hybrids of existing animals, a la wolf spiders and chicken seals, or fearsome predators like a land shark. The Bettermans have cultivated a stunning day-glow garden, even wilder and more demented than the trippy Sistar system from the Lego Movie follow-up. Their new hosts are friendly at first, but it turns out that they secretly want to lure Guy away to marry their daughter, Dawn, Kelly Marie Tran, then cast the Croods out of the garden. We need to help them understand they have a bright future outside these walls. Hope Betterman, Leslie Mann, tells her husband Phil, Peter Dinklage, who has a weird rule about not touching the bananas. clearly intended as a clue that this paradise may be under the control of some kind of King Kong-like monster. What is it about certain animated sequels that inspires creatives to venture so far afield from what they'd done before? The Peter Max-like lunacy of the Croods A New Age recalls the equally unhinged Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, in which the mutant food of the first movie came alive. With the heavy lifting of exposition out of the way in the first film, wouldn't it be preferable to slow things down and let the sequel breathe? But in the case of the Croods, the movie never gets around to establishing the ground rules, which in turn allows the filmmakers to rewrite them as they go. The team's most frequently used comedy tactic involves pointing audiences' expectations in one direction, then pulling the rug out from under them. The King Kong twist is a good example, which the film flips several times for laughs. Instead of a massive gorilla, the banana eater is revealed to be a cute little punch monkey who belongs to a swarm of the critters who make sacrifices to a massive gorilla after all. In some cases, it pays off to play against type. Rather than seeing each other as rivals, Eep and Dawn hit it off, heading out on adventures together. And once the movie hits its truly crazy streak in the final third, it's the men who are captured and offered to the monster, while Gran and her Thunder sisters do the rescuing. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't exhausted long before the movie turned into a sequence of anti-action scenes. In fact, that feeling set in after the first 5 minutes, when the Croods were battling giant kangadillos in a breakneck canyon race. It doesn't help that Mark Mothersbaugh's busy score elbows into every moment where we might catch our breath. For all its hyper-caffeinated energy and irreverence, the movie reduces to a relatively simple, square message. The family that sleep piles together stays together. But scratch away at the prehistoric setup, and one might find an ugly parody of the cultural divide racking America in the year 2020, as a belligerent political divide finds the country torn between Croods and self-anointed, yet hypocritical, Bettermans. Is the movie trying to appeal to one tribe or the other? Might such a fable serve to bring the two parties together? Sure, that could happen, but this is the Croods we're talking about. We should be grateful for a DreamWorks tune that doesn't resort to fart jokes, which is one small sign of progress already. The development process proceeded with typical Hollywood momentum through 2014 and 2015. On June 12th, 2014, Universal Pictures scheduled the sequel for a November 3rd, 2017 release date, providing the creative team with what seemed like adequate time for development. However, by August 21st, 2014, the studio pushed the release date back to December 22nd, 2017, indicating early signs of production challenges. This delay foreshadowed the more significant obstacles that would emerge. As the project progressed through the complex landscape of studio politics and corporate acquisitions, the most significant disruption came in 2016 as Universal parent company Comcast prepared to acquire DreamWorks Animation. On August 9, 2016, 20th Century Fox removed the film from its release schedule entirely, transferring distribution rights to Universal Pictures with a vague 2018 target date. This corporate reshuffling created uncertainty about the project's future, leading to behind-the-scenes doubts about its viability. In August 2016, the Mann brothers Kevin and Dan Hageman were brought in to rewrite the script, suggesting substantial changes to the original creative direction established by Sanders and Deco. The most dramatic development occurred on November 11th, 2016, when DreamWorks Animation officially canceled production on the sequel. Industry reports indicated that doubts about the project had been brewing even before Universal's acquisition of DreamWorks, and the new corporate structure provided an opportunity to eliminate what was perceived as a less than essential project. This cancellation appeared final, representing a significant financial write-off and disappointment for fans who had been anticipating the continuation of the Croods story. However, in one of the more remarkable Resurrection Stories in Animation History. The project was revived in September 2017. DreamWorks and Universal announced that the film was back in production with a new release date of September 18th, 2020. Crucially, this revival came with significant changes to the creative leadership. Both Chris Sanders and Kirk Dow, who had been instrumental in creating the original film's distinctive voice and visual style, would not be returning to the sequel. In October 2017, Joel Crawford was announced as the new director, replacing both Sanders and Deco. Crawford brought a different creative sensibility to the project, having previously worked as a storyboard artist on films like The Croods and Trolls. Mark Swift replaced the original film's producers, Jane Hartwell and Christine Belson, fundamentally altering the production hierarchy. This changing of the guard represented more than just personnel shifts. It signaled a complete reimagining of the sequel's creative direction and production methodology. The script development process involved significant collaboration between Paul Pfizer, Bob Logan, and the Hagman brothers, all working to create a story that would honor the original while establishing new narrative territories. The final screenplay drew from the original story by DeMoe and Sanders while incorporating fresh perspectives and contemporary themes about family, dynamics, cultural differences, and social evolution. Filming as an animated feature, The Croods: A New Age did not involve traditional filming in the conventional sense. However, the animation production process required extensive voice recording sessions, motion capture work, and collaborative creative development that paralleled live-action filmmaking in many respects. The voice recording process began with securing the return of the original cast members. In September 2013, Nicolas Cage, Emma Stone, and Ryan Reynolds were confirmed to reprise their roles as Grug and Guy, respectively. Catherine Kinnear and Clark Duke also returned as Yuga and Thank, maintaining continuity with the established character dynamics that had made the first film successful. The expansion of the voice cast required extensive casting sessions and screen tests. In May 2015, Leslie Mann and Kat Dennings joined the production with Mann, voicing Hope Betterman, the matriarch of the rival family that becomes central to the sequel's plot. Dennings was originally cast as Dawn, Hope's daughter, representing a significant new character who would serve as both friend and foil to Weep. This casting represented the production's intention to introduce more sophisticated character dynamics and generational conflicts. However, the production's extended development cycle led to cast changes. In October 2018, Peter Dinklage was cast as Phil Betterman, Hope's husband and the patriarch of the more revolutionarily advanced family. His distinctive voice and acting style brought gravitas and humor to the character. Most significantly, in October 2019, Kelly Marie Tran replaced Kat Dennings as Dawn, bringing fresh energy and a different vocal interpretation to this crucial character. The voice recording process for animated films typically involves multiple sessions over several years, allowing for script revisions, character development, and performance refinement. The COVID-19 pandemic significantly impacted this process as voice actors had to adapt to remote recording setups and socially distanced studio sessions. This technological adaptation required innovative sound engineering and quality control measures to maintain the production's audio standards. Post-P production. The post-P production phase of the Croods. A New Age represented a significant evolution from the original film's technical approach. While the first film had utilized animation techniques similar to DreamWorks' How to Train Your Dragon, the sequel employed more simplified and refined designs rendered using Moonray, DreamWorks Animation's proprietary rendering system. The animation team made deliberate choices to streamline the visual complexity while maintaining the distinctive character designs and environmental richness that had defined the original. This approach served both aesthetic and practical purposes, allowing for more efficient production, while creating a visual style that felt both familiar and evolved. One of the most significant technical innovations involved the 2D animation sequences, particularly the travelogues and cave diary segments, rather than utilizing James Baxter's animation style from the first film. The production team brought in William Salazar, director of Bird, Karma, to create these sequences. This change represented a conscious decision to give the sequel its own visual identity while maintaining connections to the established Crude universe. The rendering and lighting processes benefited from significant technological advances in the 7 years between films. The Moonray system allowed for more sophisticated lighting effects, particle systems, and environmental details that enhanced the prehistoric world's believability and visual appeal. The production team took advantage of these capabilities to create more dynamic action sequences and nuanced character animations. Character animation focused heavily on maintaining the distinctive movement styles and personalities established in the first film while allowing for character growth and development. Yip's animation reflected her evolution from teenager to young adult. While Groog's movements continued to emphasize his protective instincts and gradual adaptation to change, the new characters, particularly the Betterman family, required entirely new animation approaches that would contrast with the Croods' more primitive movement styles. Environmental animation and world building represented major post-P production achievements. The Betterman's advanced civilization required sophisticated architectural and technological details that would feel both prehistoric and de-evolved. The various dangerous creatures in that fantastical landscapes demanded extensive creature design and environmental modeling that pushed the boundaries of the established Crude universe. The most significant challenge came during the COVID-19 pandemic, when most of the final animation and post-P production work had to be completed remotely. Animation teams adapted to work-from-home setups requiring new collaboration tools, file sharing systems, and quality control processes. This adaptation represented one of the animation industry's most significant technical challenges, as remote animation work required maintaining color consistency, rendering quality, and artistic cohesion across dozens of individual home setups. Music to musical score for the Croods. A New Age underwent significant changes from the original film's approach. In September 2020, DreamWorks announced that Mark Mothersbaugh would replace Alan Sylvester as the composer. This change represented more than just a personnel shift. It introduced a completely different musical philosophy and sound palette to the Croods universe. Mothersbaugh, best known for his work with the bando and his extensive film scoring career, including the Lego Movie and Thor Ragnarok, brought an eclectic and energetic approach to the prehistoric setting. His score blended orchestral elements with electronic and unconventional instrumental choices, creating a soundscape that felt both primitive and modern. The original soundtrack album, released in conjunction with the film, featured 24 tracks that supported the narrative arc while establishing distinct musical themes for the different character groups. The Croods maintained their more organic, percussion-heavy musical identity, while the Betterman family's themes incorporated more sophisticated harmonic structures and instrumental arrangements. One of the most significant musical additions was the original song Feel the Thunder, performed by the band Him. Released on November 12, 2020, this song served as both a promotional tool and a thematic statement about the film's central messages of family unity and overcoming differences. The song's rock-influenced style contrasted with the more orchestral approach of traditional animated film songs, reflecting the production's willingness to take creative risks. The score's integration of different musical styles reflected the film's central theme of cultural clash and eventual harmony. Traditional orchestral moments supported emotional character beats, while more experimental instrumental sections accompanied the action sequences and comedic moments. This musical diversity created a rich auditory landscape that enhanced the visual storytelling without overwhelming it. released the theatrical release of the Croods. A new age occurred during one of the most challenging periods in cinema history, as the COVID-19 pandemic had fundamentally altered movie, theater operations, and audience behavior. The film's release strategy represented Universal Pictures' attempt to navigate this unprecedented landscape while maintaining commercial viability. Originally scheduled for multiple different release dates, including November 3rd, 2017, December 22nd, 2017, and September 18th, 2020. The film finally reached theaters on November 25th, 2020. This Thanksgiving weekend release represented a strategic choice to capture family audiences during a traditional movie-going holiday. Despite significantly reduced theater capacity and audience hesitancy, Universal Pictures invested approximately $26.5 million in its promotional efforts, a substantial marketing spend that demonstrated the studio's confidence in the film's commercial potential despite pandemic challenges. The marketing campaign emphasized the film's family-friendly content and the return of beloved characters while introducing audiences to the new Betterman family dynamics. The theatrical release was immediately followed by a premium video-on-demand VOD release on December 18, 2020, representing a compressed theatrical window that became common during the pandemic. This dual release strategy allowed Universal to maximize revenue opportunities while acknowledging the limited theatrical market conditions. International release patterns varied significantly by region, reflecting different pandemic responses and market conditions. In the United Kingdom, the film didn't reach theaters until July 16, 2021, nearly 8 months after the U.S. release. This extended international rollout reflected the complex negotiations required to navigate different countries, CO-19 restrictions, and theatrical market conditions. The theatrical presentation utilized both standard digital projection and premium formats, including IMAX and Dolby Sound. Systems were available. However, the reduced theater capacity and limited premium format availability meant that many audiences experienced the film through home viewing rather than the immersive theatrical experience originally intended. Home Media Universal Pictures Home Entertainment orchestrated a comprehensive home media release strategy for the Croods, a new age that reflected both traditional distribution patterns and pandemic viewing preferences. The film was released on digital HD in multiple physical formats, including DVD, Blu-ray, Blu-ray 3D, and 4K Ultra HD on February 23, 2021. The home media releases included extensive bonus content designed to enhance the viewing experience and provide additional value for purchasers. 2 new short films, Family Movie Night, Little Red Brawn on Aya, Bread and Deer Diary, World's First Pranks, expanded the Croods universe with additional character adventures. The award-winning short To Gerard provided artistic context and demonstrated DreamWorks Animation's broader creative capabilities. Additional bonus features included deleted scenes that offered insights into the creative development process, an audio commentary track featuring key production personnel, and behind-the-scenes documentaries exploring the animation techniques and character development processes. These materials serve both entertainment and educational purposes, appealing to animation enthusiasts and casual viewers alike. The physical media releases reflected Universal's commitment to maintaining premium presentation quality, despite the shift toward digital consumption. The 4K Ultra HD version offered enhanced visual detail and high-resolution dynamic range color that showcased the animation team's technical achievements, while the Blu-ray 3D format provided an immersive viewing experience for audiences with compatible equipment. International home media distribution involved partnerships with regional distributors, including Universal Sony Pictures Home Entertainment in Australia and Warner Brothers Home Entertainment in the United Kingdom. These partnerships ensured global availability while adapting to different regional market preferences and distribution infrastructure. The timing of the home Media release, approximately 3 months after theatrical debut, represented the new compressed release windows that became standard during the pandemic. This accelerated timeline allowed families to enjoy the film at home during ongoing theater limitations while maximizing the studio's revenue opportunities across multiple platforms. Reception box office. The Croods: A New Age achieved remarkable commercial success, considering the unprecedented challenges facing the film industry during its release period. The film grossed $58.6 million in the United States and Canada and $157.4 million internationally for a worldwide total of $216 million against its $65 million production budget. This performance represented a significant achievement, making it the first animated film released during the COVID-19 pandemic and the first family film since Sonic the Hedgehog to surpass the $200 million worldwide mark. The domestic box office performance began modestly, but demonstrated impressive staying power. The film earned $1.85 million from 2,211 theaters on its opening day, with subsequent daily totals of $2.7 million. And $4 million culminating in a $9.7 million opening weekend with the 5-day total of $14.3 million. This opening weekend represented the largest since Tenet over 2 months prior, indicating significant pent-up demand for family entertainment. The film's theatrical longevity proved exceptional for pandemic conditions. It remained in theaters for subsequent weekends, grossing $4.4 million and $3 million in its second and third weekends, respectively. The fourth weekend saw the film temporarily dethroned by Monster Hunter, but it continued to perform steadily in subsequent weeks. Most remarkably, the film regained the number 1 box office position in its 12th week of release with $2.7 million, demonstrating unprecedented staying power for a family film during challenging market conditions. The premium video-on-demand performance complemented theatrical success significantly during its 4th weekend. The film ranked as the most rented title on Fandango Now, Apple TV, and Google Play. IndieWire estimated that BOD sales had generated approximately $20 million by the film's 5th weekend, with Universal retaining 80% of these revenues. This dual revenue stream approach proved highly effective for maximizing the film's commercial potential. International box office performance varied significantly by region, but contributed substantially to overall success. China represented the largest international market, with the film earning $3 million on its opening day, marking the 3rd biggest Hollywood opening in China for 2020 behind Tenet and Milan. The film ultimately earned $19.2 million in China and became the 2nd biggest Hollywood title of the year in that market behind Tenet, $66.6 million total. The film's total international gross of $21.6 million in its opening weekend demonstrated significant global appeal despite limited theatrical availability. By its 3rd weekend, international totals had reached $46 million, and the 4th weekend pushed the running international total above $57 million. These figures represented exceptional performance, considering the reduced theatrical capacity and audience hesitancy throughout international markets. Critical response: The Croods: A New Age received generally positive critical reception, with reviewers acknowledging both its entertainment value and its role as competent family programming during challenging times. Critics consistently described the film as a decent enough follow-up that successfully maintained the original's charm while introducing new elements and character dynamics on Rotten Tomatoes. The film achieved a 76% positive rating from 157 critics, with an average rating of 6/4. The critical consensus read, "Another agreeable outing for the titular prehistoric clan. The Croods: A New Age may be the missing link for parents between more relevant, family-friendly fare." This consensus reflected critics' appreciation for the film's solid craftsmanship and family appeal, while acknowledging its limitations compared to more ambitious animated features. Metacritic calculated a weighted average score of 56 out of 100 based on 30 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. This score reflected the critical community's recognition of the film's technical competence and entertainment value, while noting its adherence to familiar sequel formulas and predictable narrative structures. Audience reception proved more enthusiastic than critical response. CinemaScore polling revealed an average grade of A on an A+ to F scale, matching the original film's audience score. Post-Track reported that 83% of audiences gave the film positive scores, with 59% indicating they would definitely recommend it to others. These metrics demonstrated strong audience satisfaction and word of mouth potential. Individual critical reviews revealed a range of perspectives that generally praised the film's technical achievements and cast performances while noting its formulaic approach. Ben Kenigber of the New York Times offered a mixed to positive assessment, writing that while no one would call it a huge leap on the evolutionary ladder, the sequel proved slightly funnier than its serviceable 2013 predecessor. Michael O. Sullivan of the Washington Post provided a more measured response, rating the film 2/4 stars and describing it as a larchy, slightly lunatic film. His review acknowledged the film's energetic approach while questioning its narrative coherence and character development depth. Lindsay Baer of Associated Press offered a balanced perspective, rating the film to 5 stars and noting that while it might not be as novel as the first, it's essentially harmless, if a little chaotic fun for kids, and doesn't need to be anything more than that. This review captured the general critical sentiment that the film succeeded within its intended parameters without transcending them. Kate Arland of IndieWire gave the film a C++ grade, writing that it's a little silly, very colorful, and entertaining enough to deliver some good-hearted ideas that aren't beholden to any period in time, worth nearly a decade of push-pull to get here. Probably not. But on its own merits, it's a charming throwback. International critical reception followed similar patterns, with reviewers appreciating the film's technical polish and family-friendly content while noting its predictable narrative structure. Kath Clark of The Guardian rated the film 3 5-stars, praising how a list voice actors leaven this hectic children's movie with gags for grown-ups. Alonzo Gerald of The Wrap provided one of the more positive critical assessments, writing that you may never have thought you needed or even wanted a sequel to The Croods, but you may find it a pleasant surprise in a year where most of the surprises have been anything but. His review acknowledged the film's unexpected appeal and contextual relevance during the pandemic period. The critical response ultimately positioned The Croods: A New Age as a competent, entertaining sequel that served its intended audience effectively, without breaking significant new creative ground. Critics consistently praised the voice acting performances, particularly noting the chemistry between returning cast members and the integration of new characters. The animation quality and technical achievements received widespread recognition, with reviewers acknowledging the visual improvements and creative world building. The film's thematic content, focusing on family unity, cultural differences, and generational conflicts, resonated with critics who appreciated its relevant social messages. However, some reviewers noted that these themes were explored in relatively surface-level ways that prioritized entertainment over deeper character development or social commentary. Awards recognition reflected the critical community's acknowledgement of the film's technical achievements and commercial success. The film received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Animated Feature Film, competing against other major animated releases of 2020. Additional nominations from various industry organizations recognized achievements in animation, sound design, and technical craftsmanship. The critical reception ultimately supported the film's commercial success and established it as a worthy successor to the original Cruise film. While reviewers noted its adherence to sequel formulas and missed opportunities for deeper character exploration, The consensus acknowledged its success as family entertainment that provided comfort and enjoyment during a challenging period in cinema history. The positive audience reception and commercial performance validated the critical assessment that the film succeeded within its intended parameters and served its target demographic effectively. Review and facts. Number 1, overcoming the world by sticking together the animated comedy, The Croods. A new age starts with Eve falling in love with Guy, the teenage boy. Her prehistoric family founds Father Grug is sad that Guy and Deep are planning to make a life for themselves. He feels he must get rid of Guy. One day, Grug stumbles upon an ice garden and house. The owners come out, the Bettermans. The Bettermans end up knowing Guy and want him to marry their daughter instead. Will you still marry Guy, or will the Bettermans and Grow get their way? The Croods, a new age, is an extremely funny, entertaining, heartwarming movie with great dialogue. The movie's silly characters may remind viewers of their own families. A New Age has many moral, redemptive lessons. It promotes commitment, marriage, love, forgiveness, reconciliation, and sacrifice. It also has a beautiful message about fatherhood. Overall, the story stresses the importance of family and sticking together as a family. The Croods, A New Age does have brief allusions to evolution and some slapstick violence where characters fight. So Movie Day Registered advises, caution for younger children, content BBC FLVM. Dominant worldview and worldview content/elements, very strong moral worldview with redemptive elements, extols families sticking together, commitment, marriage, sacrifice, love, positive father-daughter relationships, repentance, forgiveness, reconciliation, community, and reaching for light and hope in the world. Plus, some character designs suggest evolution, but it's not discussed or mentioned. Foul language, one light, obscenity, violence, some slapstick violence, and other violence includes a character's parents have died, characters fight one another, jeopardy, monkeys hit people, people hit other people, 2 times a stick gets into a character's eye, sex, no sexual immorality, but there's brief kissing, nudity, upper male nudity, alcohol use, no alcohol, but one character is poisoned from bee poison and is acting like they're drunk, smoking and or drug use and abuse, no. Smoking or drugs and miscellaneous immorality, some deception and scheming or lying, more detail. In The Croods, A New Age, the prehistoric Crood family meets a family named the Bettermans who challenge the Croods on everything. The Croods, A New Age is a very funny, heartwarming movie that the whole family can enjoy with moral messages throughout the story. One day, the Crood family meets Guy, a teenager who falls in love with their daughter, EP. One evening, Guy asks EP to marry him and have a life adventure away from her family. Yep's father, Grug, overhears the conversation and is not pleased. His goal now is to get rid of Guy, not because Guy is a bad guy, but because he doesn't want to lose his beloved daughter. Grug walks around, trying to figure out how to solve this problem, and comes across a huge wall. In the morning, Grug wakes the family up and shows them that beyond the wall is a beautiful garden of luscious food. As the entire family munches on the delicious food, Grug reaches for a banana and is caught in a trap. It is a couple that traps Grug, but soon they recognize Guy and let Grug go. They have been looking for Guy for years and years, and Guy has been looking for them. The couple introduces themselves as the Bettermans and invite the Croods into their house. Their house is like an oasis where everything seems a little better. Grug is now thinking that Guy can stay with the Bettermans, and he won't have to give away his daughter. It becomes sad, however, that Guy is getting accustomed to a comfy lifestyle and acting like he doesn't want the adventure she craves. At the same time, the Bettermans are scheming for their own daughter to marry Guy. Will Guy stay together, or will Grug and the Bettermans get their way and succeed in splitting up the couple? The Croods, A New Age is an extremely funny movie with great dialogue. Also, the movie has a very entertaining plot line with silly characters that reminds audiences of their own place in their own families. The movie has some creative animation, but some of it assumes naturalistic evolution. Despite this, the theme of evolution isn't explicitly mentioned or discussed. A New Age has many moral, biblical lessons. The movie shows that commitment and marriage are good things. It also has a beautiful message about fatherhood and children. Overall, the movie stresses the importance of family and sticking together as a family. It also stresses love, forgiveness, sacrifice, and community. The Croods, New Age does have brief allusions to evolution and some slapstick violence where characters hit each other and sticks fly into one character's eye twice. Number 2, movie review. Life as a family of cave dwellers is no picnic. Let me tell you, especially when you've left your safe, rocky cave behind. Grug, the father of the prehistoric Crood clan, may be as burly as a bear and covered in nearly as much fur. And most of the family members may have the strength of 10 or more of today's scrawny man types. But when they're facing off with a group of huge wolf spiders, that strength seems small. Yeah, life's pretty dangerous for the Croods. So they've set off on a journey to find a home that's more secure. And so they trudge along in the direction of the rising sun in search of a better tomorrow. Along the way, they've picked up a new pack member, young Guy. Yes, the pack is stronger because of Guy and Dia. Grug's teen daughter rapports him, but Grug still has his doubts about moving the family through such a dangerous. Not only that, but a Pakiza including wife Huga's son, thanks small Depp, Pharaoh daughter Sandy, and old hag Grana is hard to feed on a few berries and an occasional spider or lizard. Life isn't easy, but one day while scouting for food, Greg finds something amazing. A huge man-made wall hiding a green land of plenty. There are rows of growing fruit and vegetables, flowing streams of water. This paradise is exactly what they've been seeking, a place to spend all of their tomorrows together safely. There's only one problem. Someone already lives there. Another family of skinny, upright standing people occupy this place. They have marvelous inventions and live in a massive, sprawling treehouse. And somehow these people, Phil and Hope Betterman and their daughter Dawn, seem to recognize Guy from when he was a boy. They knew his parents long ago and they welcome Guy and his friends in. Still, it all feels wrong to Grug better a broken bar. Menha, Grug will see about that. He'll see positive elements. Grug repeatedly says that a family pack is stronger when its members stick together, and that becomes a central through line. Here's family may be primitive, but they are indeed stronger as a unit. In contrast, the Betterman's separate living quarters and advanced individuality leave them less united and vulnerable to the dangers of the world. In the end, both families realize that relying on family and friendship and trusting in the support and strength of others can benefit everyone. There are also thoughtful messages here about teens growing up and falling in love and encouragements for family members to ease their protective grip on kids in order to let that healthy growth and change take place. It's also implied that committed relationships are very much a part of that growing process. When moving temporarily into the Betterman's rehouse, then becomes enamored with a new invention they have called the window. His obsessed gaze at the world beyond that magical window winks at the idea of teen addiction to screens and the danger of being so tied into viewing that you don't go out and be a part of the world you're watching. Dunk eventually opines perhaps the window through which I view the world is flawed. Both Grug and Phil realize that to a certain extent their actions have made them both bad fathers, and they declare their intention to make wiser choices in the future. At one point, Phil shows Grug his man cave where he secretly sneaks away to get away from his family, a concept that Grug can't understand in the slightest. Declares his commitment to and desire to be with his wife Yuga. Spiritual elements. No direct spiritual elements here. But when the Croods enter the Betterment compound, they're told that one of the rules is that you never eat the bananas. And that suggestion of forbidden fruit takes on an almost biblical level of temptation for Gruba. Temptation that he eventually gives into and which causes great harm, sexual romantic content. He and Guy kiss. And there's also a narrative tug and pull over which teen girl, poor Dawn, would be the better match for Guy. Yuga and Grug talk about the possibility of Heap and Guy someday going off to start their own pack, much to Grug's chagrin. Both Guy and Dawn wear sloths as fashion accessories, and upon meeting Dawn's sloth, Sash looks at Guy's sloth belt and murmurs, "Ooh la la." Grant talks of once being a part of an Amazon-like pack of woman fighters called the Thunder Sisters, and in an effort to revitalize the group, she pulls off her animal skin and reveals her chiseled body dressed in bra and underwear like undergarments. Grug and Phil wear nothing but loincloths in Phil's steam-filled man cave, though the abundantly furry Grug looks no different. Violent content. Early on, we see a flashback to a young Guy watching his mother and father who are stuck in a rising tar pit. They lovingly encourage him to leave them, to turn around and walk toward the safety of tomorrow in the rising sun. There's lots of slashing and slamming peril to be found in this prehistoric world, from the likes of sharp-toothed critters to lunging beasties, as well as oversized bees, pummeling swarms of monkeys, huge wolf-spider hybrids, and a gigantic King Kong-like ape. But those threats are always played as broad, frenetically cartoonish adventures. They're never too intense or truly scary. In that light, it shows new friend on all the scraps and scars she's gained while battling various attacking creatures. Dawn laments, "My parents won't even let me get scars." So when later a bee stinger is jammed through Dawn's palm, she celebrates the wound and the badly swollen mitt. There's a running gag that involves people and creatures being accidentally poked in the eye by a stick. There's no evident injury after an initial yelp. A large group of monkeys communicate through a language consisting of three stooges like slaps and punches. We also find that there are kick monkeys, headbutt monkeys, and low-blow monkeys in their midst. At one point, Grug's pack believes it's under attack and creates an outward-facing kill circle, but they accidentally pummel Grug with rocks and spears as he walks out of a wooded area. They apologize profusely, but Grug grunts wearily. Never apologize for a nay. Effective kill circle. Crude or profane language, there are several exclamations of "what the heck" and an "oh my gosh" in the dialogue mix, and when told to just chill, the hot-headed Grud growls, "I'm gonna chill here," before being silenced by a loving kick from his mate. Someone is called a twit. Drug alcohol. Content, Dawn gets stung by a prehistoric bead and a bee venom causes her to wobble about as if drunk in an act of teen rebellion, and Dawn break the rules and cause havoc outside the Betterman compound walls. They come back in a disheveled, seemingly drunken state. Some people make choices designed to ostracize and hurt others, but eventually all involved admit to their wrongs and apologize. Conclusion: The Croods: A New Age is a rare moving cave. Drawing, indeed. It started out as a sequel to a fun 2013 film about family, togetherness, and growth. But through almost pure happenstance, The Croods: A New Age has now become a pick that reflects our current crazy world. As a cave family, the Croods have to do everything as a pack. They stand back facing the dangers of the world, sleeping in a giant pile and locked together for survival. And when encountering the Betterman family, they face off with people who don't think like them or understand them, people who are seemingly at total odds with them. Does any of that remind you of parallels in a coronavirus-plagued culture? Even if you don't notice those parallels, though, A New Age is a fun, rollicking film that touches on everything from parental concerns about teenage love, to thoughts about the strong bonds of family, to encouragements to find common ground with others. There are even some winks at kids struggling with too much screen time and nods toward female empowerment. I mean, this family romp is packed with whys, oops, and growls of every thoughtful stripe. Yes, there is silliness, a bit of dragodite toily stuff, and some light monstery perils to navigate. Hey, this is a world full of animated Neanderthal goopy dangers after all, but it's all thumped and splatted about with colorful cartoony glee. In my own grunting assessment, I'd say that if there's ever going to be a movie morsel that'll tempt families to crawl out of their caves, winds, in the bright sunlight and amble back to the movie theaters, this mostly sweet treat might be the one to do it. After spending more than 2 decades touring, directing, writing, and producing for Christian theater and radio, most recently for Adventures in Odyssey, which he still contributes to, Bob joined the Plugged In staff to help us focus more heavily on video games. He is also one of our primary movie reviewers. Number 3. New York CNS at the most entertaining Stone Age family since the Flintstones. Returns to the big screen in the Croods, a New Age universal, a delightful, animated comedy suitable for almost all ages. This follow-up to the 2013 original is based on a story by that film's co-directors and screenwriters Chris Sanders and Kurt Deco. Joel Crawford takes the helm from them with gusto, and the result is a sequel that ramps up the humor and vibrancy while preserving key lessons about family and tolerance. When we last encountered the crude brood, Terrence Grugg, voice of Nicolas Cage and voice of Catherine Kinnear, had taken a hipster teen named Guy, voice of Ryan Reynolds, under their wing, orphaned as a child. He had survived alone in the wild thanks to humanity's latest discovery, fire. Now Guy is on a quest to follow the light toward a safe haven he calls tomorrow. Guy's newfound companions include teenage voice of Emma Stone, her dimwit brother Thank, voice of Clark, Duke, and their hyperactive toddler sibling Sandy, voice of Kay Crawford. Rounding out the family is Doy Gran, voice of Claw Urus Leachman, who provides comic relief rather than wisdom. As the sequel opens, the crews are a close-knit pack on the move. Guy and Deep have fallen hopelessly in love, making eyes at each other and stealing kisses, all to the strains of the Partridge Family. Chestnut, I think I love you? This worries Grugg, who fears the lovesick duo will depart and form their own pack. The only way to survive is if the pack stays together, he insists. Fate intervenes when the crews reach what seems like Guy's promised land, an oasis of tranquility and abundant produce surrounded by high walls. Boarding over this paradise is the Betterman clan, parents Phil, voice of Peter Dinklage, and Hope, voice of Leslie Mann, and teen daughter Dawn, voice of Kelly Marie Tran. It's an unexpected reunion for a guy who grew up next door to the Bettermans. Dawn, in fact, was his childhood sweetheart. True to their name, the Bettermans are convinced they have evolved to become a more refined-y version of Neanderthal. Their Zen lifestyle, spas, infused grooming habits, and refined table manners are a stark contrast to the behavior of the Croods. I don't know if cave people belong in the modern world. Hope frets, but Guy isn't a answer to prayers as a hope for made for Dawn. Surprisingly, it has no time for jealousy. Instead, she's thrilled to meet a pair and explore the meaning of girlfriend. She and Dawn instantly bond, with Deep offering life lessons in the real world outside the walls. The Croods, a new age, is a barrel of laughs as it winds a culture clash between the families who gradually come to understand and respect each other. A few potentially scary, albeit slapstick, moments and a handful of toilet jokes aside, it's a pleasant escape appropriate for a wide audience. The film contains cartoonish action and some vaguely scatological humor. The Catholic Catholic news service classification is A2A, adults and adolescents. The Motion Picture Association rating is PGA. Parental guidance suggested some material may not be suitable for children. Number 4, Grugg Nicolas. Cage is still looking for a safe home for his family of cave people. When they accidentally stumble into the jungle home of the Bettermans, old friends of Guy Ryan Reynolds, the crews think they've got it made. But the Betterman's paradise has some secrets. 8 years after the original film, Mayans in child years at the Croods return for a second adventure. Originally intended for release in 2017, this sequel was scrapped then resurrected amid some studio hokey-pokey too dry to detail. In that time, much of its 2013 audience has reached adulthood in memory of the first movie has faded. Fortunately, it doesn't particularly matter if you don't remember or haven't even seen the first film. You'll catch up quickly. And this cheerfully insane follow-up is actually significantly more evolved than its predecessor. It's prettier, more confident, and much funnier. Last time, we saw them, the Croods, a family of cave people living in evolutionarily turbulent times, learn that progress is not always to be feared. In this romp, they teach more civilized humans that sometimes it's good to embrace your savage side. The Croods are led by Grug. Nicolas Cage, a Neanderthal, both genetically and emotionally. His daughter Emma Stone has fallen for a moderately more advanced human. Guy, Ryan Reynolds, much to her father's displeasure. This time, Guy introduces his new in-laws to the closest thing he has to a family. Around the also story are lots of weird flourishes that make this movie very odd and very enjoyable. The unsettlingly named Bettermans, Hope, Leslie Mann, and Phil Peter, and Collage live in an eye-poppingly lush paradise surrounded by a huge wall. They have endless amounts of food and zippy, modern inventions such as stairs, windows, and bathing. They are the exact opposite of the Croods and think Guy might be far better suited to their daughter Kelly Marie Tran. The Bettermans, with their hippie vibe and looks living, provide some sly, winking digs at New Age group. White types who like to preach earthiness but are rampant consumerists. The film's central plot is a clashing in-law comedy which takes a lot of the roots you'd expect. It's a shame that it crowds out some more interesting subplots. The two are rivals for Guy's affection, refuse to be pushed into becoming enemies without agency, and instead choose to get to know each other as more than just would be girlfriends. All the potential in that, sadly, is largely restricted to a single sequence. However, much of the fun of this movie occurs outside the plot. All around that story are lots of weird flourishes that make this movie very odd and very enjoyable. As in the original, the land is inhabited by senseless mashup animals, spider wolves, quadrupedal sharks, chicken seals. The sequel really builds on that base nuttiness. There are monkeys who have a language based on punching. Guy's closest friend is a sloth who he wears as a belt. There is a sentient twig. First-time director Joel Crawford has a very silly instinct. And that's a compliment. There's not a huge amount of ambition in the storytelling, but there's a steadfast commitment to making the audience laugh, even if sometimes the jokes make very little sense. As the movie's lesson goes, there's a lot to be said for keeping things simple. The first film was so middle of the road that most have probably forgotten it existed. Its sequel creates a more lasting impression with vibrant animation and a wackadoodle sense of humor. Number 5. The Crood family once again find themselves traveling the world in search of a new home. Eventually, they come across a walled-in paradise full of food, water, and predators. There they meet the Betterman family, Hope, Leslie Mann, Phil, Peter, Dalaj and Dawn, Kelly Marie Tran. Seemingly more evolved, the Bettermans look down on the Croods and plot to keep Guy Ryan Reynolds with them, while sending the rest of the Croods back into the wild. I am not familiar with the first Croods film, so I'm basing my evaluation of the sequel on its own merits. And I'll start with saying that it's fine. This is not a groundbreaking, revolutionary entry into the animation canon, but it's also not bad. I was mildly entertained throughout, laughed a few times, and only rolled my eyes once. Compared to the unwatchable garbage I usually get subjected to, that's high praise. I have further tributes for the voice work, which is phenomenal across the board. This is an all-star cast, and they are not phoning it in. Peter. Dinklage particularly shines in his role as Phil, the arrogant and pompous patriarch of the Bettermans. The story has some heartfelt moments and some sweet messages about overcoming prejudices, learning humility, and working together. I very much appreciated that the writers resisted the urge to pit Don and Deep Emma Stone against each other to fight over Guy, and instead had them become friends almost immediately. The writing is also decently funny, not just for young kids, but for adults as well. It does slide into potty humor occasionally, but not so much that it becomes unbearable for those with more maturity than the 8-year-olds this movie is aimed at. As far as a family movie night suggestion goes, this is not a bad choice. It's watchable enough for adults to mildly enjoy themselves and amusing enough that most children will have a lot of fun. It does lean into some scary territory a few times and involves a lot of slapstick violence. So I'm not sure I would recommend it for the preschool crowd, but you can use your own discretion based on your child's level of sensitivity. Overall, I'm a firm believer that children today need more Nicolas Cage in their lives, and you could certainly do a lot worse. Number 6, back in 2013, The Croods became a meme without anything from the movie actually going viral. Oh, it was a pleasant enough film. It isn't particularly smart, but it has just enough wood to keep us engaged and just enough speed to keep us from feeling restless, I said in my review, and a sizable hit to a rare non-sequel. Blockbuster for DreamWorks Animation at the time. But somehow the picture became a punchline, a poster child for high concept. Grab all the money while you bluntness. Maybe it was the dull simplicity of its premise. A prehistoric family engages in death-dealing shenanigans while outrunning the apocalypse. Or could it simply have been the dim-balled musicality of that title? Go on, say Croods out loud a few times. And be sure to extend that. Oh, as much as you can, I guarantee you'll feel both better and dumber. New movies in 2020 don't really become memes anymore, at least not in our current dystopian holding pattern. So it may not matter, one way or the other, that the Croods, A New Age, essentially presents the same conflict as the first film did between brute force and wit, between fear and knowledge, only with a somewhat more pointed and timely slant. After a prologue that shows us how Guy Ryan Reynolds, the smarty-pants dreamer who helped save the titular cave family in the first film, became an orphan wanderer. The new movie picks up where the previous one left off. The Croods are still looking for a new place to call home. Guy is continuing to romance heap Emma Stone under the watchful gaze of her paranoid father, Nicolas Cage. The family eventually finds itself in an idyllic land run by a rather modern-looking couple, Hope and Phil Turman, Leslie Mann and Peter Dinklage, respectively, who have managed to pioneer advanced farming methods alongside newfangled concepts like clothes, soap, and privacy. The Bettermans, it turns out, were friends of Guy's now deceased parents. They disdain the crew's uncouth ways and are somewhat outraged that Guy is engaged to weep instead of their own daughter, Dawn Kelly Marie Tran. It's dynamic, ripe for confrontational culture, wearing the Fey Man Bunfill and the nice on the outside, judgmental on the inside Hope, are exactly the kind of progressive 21st Street century busybodies who would have voted for Obama a third time. We're often told America loves to hate. Let's face it, even progressive 21st Street century busybodies hate progressive 21st Street century busybodies. Next to the ignorant, slovenly Croods feel refreshingly salt of the earth. It's like Idiocracy in reverse. But that's just the setup. This is an animated family film, after all. So we know that Hope and Phil and Grug and his wife, Yuga Catherine Keener, will eventually set aside their differences to cooperate against a common enemy. And that things will get entertainingly roller coaster wide, just like they did in the first movie. Back in 2013, the crew's elaborate rapid-fire action sequences felt like typical studio animation pirate techniques. Now, they're a little more elaborate and a little more rapid-fire, but a lot less impressive. Still, the few clever Mad Max Fury Road call-outs might help the film pander to grown-up viewers, while reminding us all over again how much Fury Road was. Basically live-action cartoon. More fun are the imaginative prehistoric beasts, from land sharks to six-eyed spider wolves to a tribe of punch monkeys that has developed a language that consists entirely of well punches and slaps. This was one of the strengths of the first picture. 2, you sense that the filmmakers had a blast inventing crazy new creatures for this primeval fantasy. Oddly, it was one of the weaknesses of the first film. 2, the more creative the world around the Croods got, the less interesting and more boilerplate the Croods' actual story felt. but our world has changed as well. And one need not be too cruel to the crude. A sentence I can't believe I just typed. Once upon a time, saying a movie would help pass the time felt like damning with faint praise. Today, it feels like an essential service. Number 7. The Croods: A New Age is a fun family film filled with laughter and lessons for everyone, especially parents. The Croods: A New Age is a fun family movie that will have everyone laughing. Not only that, it teaches some great lessons for everyone, but especially parents. My daughters are 7 and 9, and they both really love this film. I enjoyed it, but it is very much a kids' movie, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Safe for kids of all ages and sure to be a hit with the family. The Croods: A New Age hits theaters on November 25th. In this story, the Croods come across the Bettermans who live behind a wall in a beautiful oasis filled with food and modern advancements. Well, modern for the Croods. Bunk becomes obsessed with watching the window are the perfect metaphor for technology that parents will totally be able to relate to. They are also introduced to showers and new ways of making fire. But do the Betterments want them stay, and do they even care to stay with the introduction of things like privacy? Not everyone agrees on what they want to do. The pack motto has always been that the pack stays together. But will they after this movie? You will have to watch and see. The Croods came out in 2013, so this is a significant gaps between films. The original came out the same year my youngest daughter was born and quickly became a family favorite. Then the series was launched on Netflix, and my girls have been Croods obsessed ever since. But does A New Age fit into the world? Cute follow-up to the Croods if you put the original and this one side to side. You will clearly notice all the advances animation has gotten over the years. A New Age just feels brighter and better put together. I am totally here for the new look, especially when it comes to the adorable creatures like Guy Slothbelt. Besides the obvious, though, was the Cruise 2 really necessary? Of course not. But is it a welcome addition to the franchise? Sure is. It is a cute family movie that builds on the world of the Croods that we already know. It teaches kids not to judge a book by its cover, and it teaches adults to let go every now and then. Definitely a kids' movie. The Croods: A New Age is for sure a kids' movie. There is no denying that. All that really means, though, is that the humor is family-friendly. There are no adult situations, and humans of all ages can watch it. That doesn't mean that older kids and adults will find this movie slow or boring. I really enjoyed watching this film as I laughed along with my kids. There were some moments that had us giggling for full minutes. They do slip a few things in there just for the adults, like the presence of a man cave. But overall, the jokes will land with the whole family. A great lesson for parents. As I said above, the Croods: A New Age teaches parents that sometimes you have to let go of your kids at least a little bit. Anyways, as a mom, this lesson really resonated with me. I cannot tell you how many times I have told my girls they will be living at home forever and they better not plan to date anyone ever. Realistically, I know this is not going to happen, but it feels nice to dream about it. Honestly, though, I know in my heart that would not be good for my girls at all. If I hold them back, they are likely to run away from me completely. The Croods: A New Age teaches that lesson well, among others. Overall thoughts: The Croods: A New Age is a cute family movie that clocks in at just around an hour and a half, which is more than enough time to get its point across. Although some parts feel disjointed, it never got slow enough to bore me. The voice acting is great, as to be expected with a stellar cast, and I love the new additions of the Bettermans. There was some setup for a love triangle, which never really happened, and honestly, I am very thankful for that. I think it would have been too much for a kids' movie and just not a great fit in this film. There are several lessons to learn, but the most important one being to never judge a person just by the way they look. If you are looking for a family-friendly movie that will have the whole family giggling, this is it. Likely a little Bit forgettable for the adults, but kids are sure to have a blast and ask to watch it time and time again. Be sure to stay thought the credits as you get a glimpse into the future of the Croods and the Betterments. Check out my favorite, The Croods. A new age quotes about the Croods. A new age, the Croods have survived their fair share of dangers and disasters, from fanged prehistoric beasts to surviving the end of the world. But now they will face their biggest challenge of all, another family. The Croods need a new place to live. So the first prehistoric family sets off into the world in search of a safer place to call home. When they discover an idyllic Walden paradise that meets all their needs, they think their problems are solved. A broken bar, except for one. Another family already lives there. The Betterments. The Betterments. Emphasis on the better with their hop, elaborate treehouse, amazing inventions, and irrigated acres of fresh producia are a couple of steps above the Croods on the evolutionary ladder. When they take the Croods in as the world's first house guests, it isn't long before tensions escalate between the cave family and the modern family. Just when all seems lost, a new threat will propel both families on an epic adventure outside the safety of the wall, one that will force them to embrace their differences, draw strength from each other, and forge a future together. Number 8. The Croods. A new age begins when the first movie leaves off with another perilous and exciting adventure. With the way parenting feels, today I couldn't help but relate to Grand Crood. Unknown dangers lurk everywhere in the film. While I am not dealing with land sharks or punch monkeys, I can see value in the Croods' family philosophy that the pack must always stick together. This fun film is silly in all the right ways, with heartwarming messages about self-discovery, friendship, and embracing differences that are needed in our world. Now I turn the keyboard over to my youngest son, Cade, so he can give you a kid's perspective, and this family-friendly film movie reviewer, Cade, age 8. What is the movie The Croods? A new age about. The Croods have spent a long time surviving as a pack. Life has been hard and dangerous. In the new movie, they meet another family, the Betterments. The two families have to learn to get along. What ages do you think will enjoy The Croods A New Age? I think kids 4 to 12 years old would like the movie, but my parents like it too. What was your favorite part? Spoiler free. We promise there are a lot of jokes and I loved all of the comedy. My favorite part was when Grant thought she had seen it all. Did you learn anything from the movie? I learned that you should follow some rules, especially those that keep you safe, but it is important to be yourself. Would you recommend this movie to your friends? Yes, it's funny and entertaining. The surprises and silly accidents will make kids laugh a lot. The movie has mystery and excitement to the end. The new characters are really fun and creative. The Croods A New Age features the voice talent of returning stars Nicolas Cage, Catherine Kinnear, Emma Stone, Ryan Reynolds, Clark Duke, and Claude Leachman. They're joined by new stars Peter Dinklage, Leslie Mann, and Kelly Marie Tran. The film is directed by Joel Crawford, who has worked on multiple DreamWorks animation films, including Trolls and the Kung Fu Panda franchise, and is produced by Mark Swift of Captain Underpants, the first epic movie, and Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted. Number 9, no one would call it a huge leap on the evolutionary ladder. But the animated sequel, The Croods A New Age, is slightly funnier than its serviceable 2013 predecessor. That movie followed a family of cave persons, whose patriarch was the lunk-headed but big-hearted Grug, voiced by Nicolas Cage, as they left the safety of the rocky alcove they called home, and thanks to the creativity of an outsider, Guy Ryan Reynolds embraced more innovative ways of thinking. The Croods A New Age, directed by Joel Crawford, accelerates the Crood family's clash with modernity. The clan stumbles into a verdant utopia that's a cross between Shangri-La and Gilligan's Island. This paradise is maintained by a family called the Bettermans, headed by Hope, Leslie Mann, and Phil Peter Dinklage, who wear New Age garb and snobbishly show off their advanced ideas like private rooms, windows, and fruit baskets. They also have plans to set up Guy, who has been going steady with Emma Stone, the Croods' eldest, with their daughter, Don Kelly Marie Tran, in a subplot that the writers, perhaps because the world's still tiny population left them without enough characters to pair off a leave at least partly unresolved, while Dawn and Deep become besties. The dueling dads negotiate the common ground between Groog's vestigial chromagnetism and Phil's prototexuality. Paradoxically, the movie's energy ebbs as the proceedings turn more antic. The culture clash comedy becomes secondary once a new age introduces a tribe of pugnacious, subtitled monkeys who appear to have a fairly advanced society of their own. The Croods, a new age-rated PG hybrid animals, such as wolf spiders, that might frighten children. Running time 1 hour 35 minutes in theaters. Please consult the guidelines outlined by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention before watching movies inside theaters. Number 11. The first trailer for The Croods: A New Age, the follow-up to DreamWorks Animation's 2013 animated adventure comedy, is dropped. Nicolas Cage, Emma Stone, Ryan Reynolds, Claw, Urus Leachman, Catherine Keener, and Clark Duke have all returned to voice their Crood characters for the sequel, with Peter Dinklage, Leslie Mann, and Kelly Marie Tran joining the cast as the Bettermans, a family whose idyllic residence has caught the eye of the first prehistoric family. After surviving disasters and beasts in the fictional prehistoric Cretaceous era, the Croods find themselves in need of a new place to live. Dad always says the pack stays together. Stone's Crood says as the family flies through the air on the back of their saber-toothed cat predator. Now, we're searching for a perfect place to call home when they stumble upon a walled-in paradise, complete with a towering treehouse and irrigated acres of colorful, fresh produce. It seems like they've stumbled into the perfect place, but they soon discover that it's not ripe for the taking, as it currently belongs to the Bettermans, an evolved family, believing cave people died off years ago. The Bettermans, emphasis on the better, are somewhat fascinated by the Croods, who they see as less evolved, and agree to welcome them as their house guests. The Croods' arrival to their new home has its perks, including new relationships and access to modern amenities like a bird window and sandals. But Cage's patriarch rug isn't taking well to all the changes, and tension between both families begins to grow. So when Eve takes the Betterman's daughter, Dawn Tran, outside their towering wall, both families are suddenly thrust into an adventure that may see them forging a new future together. The only way to survive is if the pack stays together. Cages says the Crood sequel was initially announced back in 2013 after the DreamWorks film grossed more than $580 million worldwide, garnered Oscar and Golden Globe nominations. Production on the film was then halted in 2016 after layoffs following Universal's acquisition of DreamWorks. In 2017, the animation studio announced that the film was back on, and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting, and if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.